Hey everybody, my name is Jennifer. All the stories that you read on this page are all written by me. These are just kind of my tales of everything that's happened since we got the building. My husband and I own Hahira Honey Hole, located here in Hahira, and we are located inside the old Hahira Hardware Company building. The building was built in the late 1800s, and we kind of came in and took it over in November of 2023 and started getting it ready to open the honey hole. Started just kind of cleaning up and doing work and preparing for the new shop to open. In the process of that, just a lot of random things were happening, things we just couldn't quite make sense out of. So maybe if this is, kind of popular and y'all enjoy hearing this tonight, then maybe eventually I'll go back in and do some more recordings and tell you all about the other different events that have happened in the building. But tonight I really just kind of want to talk about Miss Martha. I have a lot of people message and comment and come by the shop asking me more about what's gone on with her since I started bringing in cut flowers. And it was stuff that I really just didn't quite feel comfortable posting because I feel like it's really stuff that's just gonna make me look a little crazy. So I just kind of haven't talked on any of all of it. But the only way to really kind of update you and explain where we're at now with everything that happens here is to kind of backtrack and explain where I'm at with Miss Martha. She has been a big part of everything that goes on here. We know that she's not the only spirit that we have here, but she's the one that I've really have most of interactions with and have really been able to bond and form kind of a relationship with. I feel like she's really fond of me and I'm just incredibly fond of her. So my relationship with Miss Martha kind of started back somewhere around March of last year. After a lot of things were happening in the building, we called out JAGS, a Southern Division, to come and do an investigation and really just kind of make sure that we weren't over here going insane, that all this was really happening, and see what they could come up with for us. So while JAGS was here, they were able to make contact with Miss Martha and got her name. The day after they came out, I went outside in my garden and just picked some of the prettiest flowers that I had and decided to bring her in a bouquet of flowers. So I had some yellow roses that were blooming, and they were really some of my favorites, and I wanted to cut them and put them in my house, and I was like, I'm just going to bring these in for Miss Martha and see if she likes them and see if I can get a response out of her from it. So I brought in the flowers, and when I did, I put my phone on record. And I went into the section of the building where they had got her name and just talked to her. And said, hey, Miss Martha, I'm bringing you some flowers and wanted to tell you thank you for giving us your name last night. And I told her all about the flowers and told her that they were from my garden and that I picked them especially for her and how much I hope she really liked them. And at some point in that, I asked if she liked yellow roses. And when I went back and listened to the recording later, you could very faintly hear her voice say, "Aw, I would." And something about her voice, just she sounded so sweet and so pleasant. And just the way that she said it, you could tell that it was just something that connected with her. Maybe she had yellow roses in her yard when she was alive. So it just kind of became a thing for the last little over a year now, I guess, to bring her in different flowers, whatever's blooming in my yard, whatever I feel like is pretty that she would like. So I always bring them in and I always say, Miss Martha, I'm bringing you some flowers, and I tell her what they are and describe them and just kind of talk to her a little bit. Through the process of doing that, I guess that's kind of what created the bond that we have. Maybe it was a way of her humanizing me a little bit and feeling like I was someone that she could be comfortable with and trust. Because after several months of doing that and really not getting much of a response from her in the process, but still steady doing it and steady bringing in the flowers, One day I had came in and Stephen had been working on a light fixture that he was doing something with. And I came in and he was super proud of what he did. And he was like, "Look, do you see what I did?" And earlier that day when I had been here, he had been hanging different pictures on the wall. So I didn't notice the light fixture. I was looking at the walls and trying to see exactly what new stuff he had hung up, and was like, "No, I don't see what you did." And Steven kind of snapped at me a little bit, and he was like, "You don't notice how much brighter it is in here? Like I, fixed the light fixture." And it irritated me that he snapped at me. And I was like, "Fine, I'm going upstairs." So I went upstairs, and a few minutes later, I heard this loud crash. And I heard Stephen hollering downstairs. So I went downstairs to see what was going on. And a light bulb had fallen out of a different light fixture. And this really wasn't a story that I ever planned on really telling many people outside of my circle. And I certainly didn't plan on sitting in front of a microphone and telling you about it. But it's really part of what leads up and explains everything that goes on between Miss Martha and I. So this particular night, the light bulb falls out of this light fixture, and I go downstairs and I see what's going on. And I told Stephen, I was like, "Well, it probably just fell." I was like, "Maybe it wasn't hooked up all the way or something." And he was like, "No, the only way for the light bulbs to fall out of this fixture is you have to twist it to unlock the mechanism inside it, and then slide the light bulb to the side to release the spring for the light to come out." And his story of what happened was, after I had walked upstairs and he kind of felt like a butthead for being snappy at me, he was headed upstairs to tell me that he was sorry. And as he was walking towards this light fixture, he heard some kind of noise going on. And he stopped and tried to look around to figure out what it was he was hearing when the light bulb fell. He said had he not heard it and taken another step forward, the light would have hit him in the head when it fell. And I kind of laughed it off, and I was like, "Well, I guess that's what you get for being a jerk. You shouldn't have been snapping at me." And really kind of chalked it up at that point. I was like, apparently she just didn't like you being snappy at me. So I went back upstairs, and I was still kind of aggravated, and I went back up there and sat down. And a few minutes later, Stephen comes back upstairs, and he says, "Why are you ignoring me?" And I was like, "I'm not." And he said, "Well, I just heard you come down the stairs, and I said something to you." And he said, "You turned around and went back upstairs." And I was like, "No, I didn't. I've been sitting in this chair since I came upstairs. I never went anywhere near the stairs." And he says, "Well, okay." He's like, "Maybe I imagined it." But, we both knew that he didn't. So a little while later, my Nana showed up. My Nana came upstairs, and she was sitting up there talking with me, and we came back downstairs to see something that Stephen wanted to show us. And when we did, I got to the bottom of the stairs and came out the little doorway that separates the stairway from the entrance of the honey hole. And there was a woman standing there. She was completely transparent. I could see right through her. I remember looking at her and being able to see the pattern in the wood behind her. And she just stood there just perfectly still. She didn't say a word, and I didn't say a word, and I just looked really hard at her hairstyle that she had and the clothes that she was wearing, and knew that she wasn't someone from our time, and looked over at my Nana and Stephen because they were standing right beside me, and they didn't see her at all. I could tell they didn't see her. So I didn't mention it, and I just, walked on by and went to do what we were doing downstairs, and a few minutes later we headed back upstairs. And when we did, she wasn't standing there anymore. She was gone. So I still didn't mention it to anybody, and we went back upstairs, and we were upstairs another hour or so. Came back downstairs, and she was standing there again. Same pose, same clothes as before. Everything was the same. And I looked at Stephen and my Nana again, and they were talking away, and you could tell they didn't see her. So, I kind of looked at her and really just kind of studied what she was wearing. trying to see if I could recognize her from any of the pictures that I'd looked at through the history of the building that I was doing. And didn't recognize her from any of the pictures that I'd seen of anyone that I knew was connected to the early days of the building. But she had on a long skirt, like ankle length skirt, and long sleeved button up blouse with a kind of collar around her neck. And she had her hair up in a bun with kind of a poof around the bun, around the top of her head. And she just stood there, looked right at me. And I just really kind of chalked it up to, I was going crazy. I was like, I'm not seeing this. They're not seeing her, so I must not really be seeing her. And I still didn't say anything and just walked by, and we just carried on our conversation as if I didn't just see a woman standing there for the second time that night. And I guess it wasn't really until later that night when I got home and I was thinking about it and knew. I was like, I've never in my life imagined seeing somebody that wasn't there. I don't have issues like that. I don't imagine people that aren't there. So I knew that I had to have seen her. And that had to have been her way of letting me know that it was her. And that all those times that I was bringing her flowers, we were striking up a friendship. And that she didn't appreciate Stephen snapping at me that night. And that was her way of dropping the light bulb and telling him that she didn't appreciate it and letting me see her so that I would know that it was her that did it. So there was no saying, oh, the light bulb must have just randomly fell out of the light fixture. It must have been this random thing that happened, these random footsteps we thought we heard, or Stephen thought he heard. It was her. And it took several days before I told Stephen that I saw her. I couldn't even tell my own husband without feeling like I was some sort of freak or something. So I did finally tell Stephen that I saw her. But over the next couple months after that, it really just kind of drove the need that I had to befriend her and to somehow make those connections with her. So I would sit upstairs, I would turn off all the lights upstairs and sit there in the dark and just talk to myself as if I was having a conversation with her in hopes that she was there and that she would hear me and that I would be making some kind of progress with forming some type of friendship with her. And I guess it kind of worked. I kind of got to the point where I could tell without any noise going on or any signs that she would be sitting up there. I would have the footsteps that would walk right up to me when I was sitting up there talking by myself, nobody else upstairs, and footsteps that would just come right up to me. So on one of the last couple of visits when Jags came out, he had brought some cat balls with him, and he was trying the cat balls out to see if he could use them to make communication and find out if they were there. So after I figured out that they were able to work the cat balls and let me know that they were there, I ordered myself some and put some cat balls on the couch that sits beside the main chair that I sit in and the chair right beside me. And I started, turning off the light and just asking, hey, do you want to come and sit and hang out with me? And after doing it a few times, the cat ball started flashing. And I would sit upstairs and the cat ball would flash beside me in the empty chair and just talk to her. Just say whatever random thing popped up in my head. And so that's kind of where I'm at with Miss Martha now. I never have seen her again, and I don't know 100% for sure that she's the one that sits upstairs with me, but I feel like she is. So I sit upstairs quite a bit in the dark. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be dark. It can be daylight, the lights on, everything, and the cat ball will just flash in the chair beside me so that I know that she's there. And I can bring up flowers and just talk and say random things, and the cat ball will go off to let me know that she appreciates them and that she sees them. And that's kind of my random, really weird story about making friends with Miss Martha. I'm assuming that since she does that, that just means that she's very fond of me and appreciates the flowers, and I'm assuming that she knows that I'm fond of her and kind of going through crazy extreme lengths to form this friendship that I have with her.